let's do this. I think it's you mentioned this before. It's kind of fun to enter in like mid-sentence.
Okay.
So we literally just did that.
That happened. Cool. So yeah, let's begin with a little prayer. So in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. Good and gracious God, we give you thanks for this community, for Strake Jesuit, for our students, for all the people involved in caring for our students, their parents and faculty and staff. We ask that you bless all of us as we begin hybrid learning this week. Help us to recognize the grace that is on offer to us today, and help us to love one another, even with the distance between ourselves. And we ask all this as we ask for Mary's intercession. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Holy Spirit. Amen. So I was walking through the dining hall at lunch today, and I was struck by just how happy people seem on... happy to see each other, right? So just
happy to see each other,
just to be back in like a sharing a physical space together, right?
Yeah.
And seeing those seniors just smiling at each other was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's a different feel. I was saying to a couple of people already that, we began hybrid yesterday. Is that right? It feels like
yesterday.
Well, it literally was yesterday. But that felt a lot like the first day of school.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we had orientation on last Friday.
Right.
So lots of people were there, but like people are actually going to class in person now.
Right.
As a new faculty member, like this is brand new for me. So that quite literally kind of is first day of school, because I've been teaching on Zoom. Okay. But like, it's weird.
Right.
But now we've got like classrooms. It's wild.
Right. Yeah. And like, I was just so impressed by my freshmen, and like just taking it all in and it all being new, but like it's really strange. And so like taking attendance, I told a couple of people this story already, but when I was taking attendance at the start of my class, I went down the screen as I typically do, like counting names on the screen, and I got to 13 and I was like, oh no, I'm missing a ton of students. And then I looked up, after delaying class a few minutes because I felt like no one was there. I looked up and was like, oh, wait, no, I have 8 others in front of me.
Yeah.
It's okay to begin now.
Here they are.
And here they are. So it's just an adjustment that we're kind of have been in a mode of doing things a certain way. And now, wait a minute, there's people in front of me.
Yeah.
It's different.
I had a weird situation and a weird little encounter with I've only had, so this week is seniors and freshmen.
Right.
I don't teach any freshmen, and I teach just a handful of seniors. And so I've only had, 4 students come in person these last 2 days. And I feel a little bad about this, but at the same time, like, I'm not losing sleep over it because I think it's reasonable. Like, when kids walk into my classroom, I'm like, who are you? Because I've only seen them on Zoom. So, I mean, I've seen their faces. But when you're just looking at a screen, I mean, you know.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of zone out when you're looking at screens.
Right.
And, like, you don't pay attention. Like, if somebody's standing in front of you, like, there's facial recognition there. Whereas if you're just watching, a video conference with, some rando, it's like, well, who are you?
Yeah, exactly.
And so I'm like... And I try to find like a good way to say it, like, remind me of your name.
Right.
It's like, Father Harmon.
Yeah, exactly. And that's when you used to. I've also been very surprised by how much taller or not tall. Someone seems when I'm kind of meeting them for the first time. Like, I have no idea about that from a camera.
Yeah.
So that's been new. And then like smiling or laughing, like just communication about like humor, I find. It's just different.
Well, because
when
you
wearing
mute
a mask,
yourself.
Like
if you're on Zoom, you hit mute, and you can't really listen to the way that students respond.
Right.
And so if you tell a funny joke, you probably don't tell a lot of jokes on Zoom, honestly, because there's no feedback.
Right.
I mean, I do because I'm awkward that way.
Right. Yeah. I just laugh at the awkwardness. Exactly. That's the part.
But yeah, it's so weird. To your height thing, though, I have that exact problem. Like, as somebody that's normal size, I assume everybody on TV is just giant.
Yeah.
And so I assume everybody that I talk to on a Zoom call is like, 7 feet tall.
Right.
And it's like, oh no, actually you're a normal sized. You're a normal
size.
human being.
5'6", normal size, right? That's
yeah.
Exactly. So that's been kind of, I think just sort of expectations and reality, right? And having something that I expect and then have it somehow be different from what I expect and kind of having to adjust on the fly.
Yeah.
And like, game time decisions, basically. Like that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah. And these are only, like, the crazy thing to think about. These are only the first 2 days.
Right.
Like, we've only hit half of the freshman and senior class who are coming back to campus.
Right. Exactly.
So, like,
there's a ton of
Thursday,
people.
Friday is going to be a whole different group.
And then next week, it's two other entirely different groups.
So we're only scratching the surface of
Right.
like this transition phase.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to get weirder.
Well, it's going to be better for the faculty and staff because we have already gone through this transition once, and now we're going to be with new people, and then new people again, and new people again.
Sure.
So like we have it kind of down, but I think students are going to be dealing with this like expectation versus reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that maybe there's a spiritual point in all of this of like expecting something and wanting something, wanting things to be back to normal, expecting things to be somewhat more like normal. And then coming up against the fact that, well, hey, this is still like so really strange. I mean, like there's plexiglass dividers, there's masks, there's social distancing, all of this stuff that makes it strange. So like, what do we do? Like, how do we address like expectations and reality, or like obstacles or feelings? Like, if I'm feeling something that's not what I want to feel, do I follow that feeling and like not engage or don't put the effort in, or do I allow that feeling to shape what I'm doing? Like, what's the...
Man, yeah, that's such a good question. And we're so tempted, I think, just on a daily basis to especially in the era of pandemic,
right? Like
to let, something like fear, for example, just dictate every single thing that we do. And everybody's doing it. Like, nobody is being called out with me saying that.
Sure.
Like, I do it, you do it,
yeah.
Everybody does it. Okay. But what I'm really interested in, and what I hope that we can address more often, is not like, and I like to mention this in like spiritual conversation with people. The question isn't if you're going to sin. The question is, what do you do when you sin? So I think for us as faculty, as teachers, as students, the question isn't going to be, well, am I going to feel this, or am I going to do the wrong thing? The answer is yes. We're trying to figure this out, and we're not doing it. I mean, we can't possibly do it well because we don't know everything that's going to be thrown at us in this next few weeks.
Right.
So I'm more interested in how flexible we can be with ourselves, with each other, with our teachers.
Right.
And how we're going to approach, when we've recognized, well, I just screwed up and that wasn't
right.
Or I'm just really frustrated with this. I can't handle Zoom anymore.
Right.
Like, I can't look at a screen for 1 second longer.
Right.
What do you do?
Right. Yeah. I think of the word resiliency or that willingness to try again. That I feel like I'm one of these people that kind of struggles with kind of social awkwardness at times, right? And that I put a lot of weight sometimes on like social interactions and putting my best self forward, right? That being kind of introverted, being a little shy, I can often really want people to think that I'm as great as I want to be, even if I'm not, that way all the time. Like that I have a hope that I can really come across and really convey what I'm feeling or who I am authentically in an interaction, right? And then when it falls short of that, I can be discouraged of like, well, that was kind of a disappointment, right?
Yeah.
But the question for me is, am I willing to try again? Am I willing to go back out there and like ask somebody, like, how are you doing today? Like, how are you feeling? Like, how are classes? What's going on, right? And to keep trying to like meet people and engage with people and keep trying. Or if my lesson plan on Monday didn't go very well because I made a disaster of attendance, right? Is that okay? Am I able to recognize, well, next time this is going to be different. It's going to be I'll have that first time behind me, and so my lesson plan on Thursday and my class on Thursday. Hopefully, I'll just be able to be more attentive to the material and to the people in front of me, and not forget that there's people in front of me,
Yeah.
I think that's maybe the hope I have is to try again and to recognize that there is another chance, that we don't have to be perfect.
I like that. And one of the things that I struggle with a lot of the time, and I don't know the answer to this, I'm going to put you on the spot. Maybe you do. Okay. Maybe you can help me out here.
Sure.
When, like, where's the distinction between, okay, we say things like, you live and you learn. Like, oh, well, I made a mistake. Now I know what not to do. Like, that's good. That's super helpful. That's how we learn, really, by failing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that I even know how to ask this question properly. I'm still trying to formulate it. But like, how can we bring this into the realm of Christian hope that starts with the cross, like starts with our Lord dying on the cross?
Right.
Like, I get upset when my class goes poorly. Mm-hmm. Well, Jesus died on the cross, and yet we still have hope.
Right. I think there can be a real attachment to success, and to success, particularly the way that I envision it, right? So, I mean, this is the story of the crucifixion, is that all these disciples had a vision for what the Messiah would look like, had a vision for what success would look like, and it wasn't this. It wasn't the crucifixion. Mm-hmm. And now, wait a minute, my Lord has been crucified. My vision of what success looks like is over. Everything I've thought and clung to is now cast aside. Like, what do I do, right? And it's an experience of the loss of my own understanding of what of who this person is, this man, Jesus, that I know and love. Like, what does it mean? And so I think a lot of it is like, how do we adjust in response to failure? How do I accept failure? How do I even enter into failure and like willingly choose to be present in the midst of failure? So, that I might have an opportunity to just pull the plug and be like, all right, well, this isn't going to work this year. We're not going to do this at all. Cast it aside. This year is a loss, right? That's a refusal of the possibility of failure. Yeah. Whereas acceptance of failure or the possibility of failure is to be willing to, I'm going to keep trying this, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm even going to keep trying it again, even if, my lesson plan on Thursday is another disaster, maybe a bigger one even. I'm going to keep trying because I'm entering into this lively place where I'm risking failure because I love this school, because I love this person. That when you enter into a romantic relationship, right, there's no assurance that it's all going to work out and everyone's going to be happy ever after, right? You're risking failure. You're risking, that people hurt each other, right? People say things they don't mean, right? People, just fail to pay attention to one another in a romantic relationship. Failure is a real option. And so that's something that I think is true of all of our relationships, and with parents or with children, with students, with teachers, with whatever relationship we have, there's going to be a possibility of failure that is just a reality. And I think the question for me is, does that prevent me from entering into it? Or does it prevent me from taking a risk? Or am I willing to fail? Because Jesus failed on a certain level, right? And therefore, it's okay for me to fail as well, recognizing that that's not the end, that there's something that comes after. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's almost like, I think the challenge for us as Christians, Jesuits, priests, whatever, like at a fundamental level, well, as Christian, at the fundamental level, it's not even like preparing for failure. It's not even like recognizing that that's going to happen and being okay with it in a sense. Because I don't think we should be okay with failure.
Sure.
I think we have to begin there.
Yeah.
Like recognizing that, and that's our salvation history, right? We are a fallen people.
Right.
In need and desperate need of salvation, of redemption.
Right. And to be okay with failure would be to fail to have hope. Right?
Exactly. So yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That the hopeful person is willing to fail, but sees that failure is not the end. It's that there's something that comes after, that there's a second chance, that there's mercy, that there's eternal life. And so we push through the failure, knowing that, well, this is failure. This can't possibly be what I'm made for, because I'm made for glory. Yeah. And so I have more to look forward to. So it's an interesting question that you're pointing to, for sure.
Now, okay, so that's kind of like ethereal, and we're getting into, some really cool. I love talking about this stuff. But like, I find that this is one of those easier said than done. Okay, Father, that's great. but I'm still scared out there.
Yeah.
Like there's still COVID cases going on.
Right. Yeah, and fear is real. There's reason to be afraid, right? And so it's one thing if fear is just in my head and it's irrational and there's no reason, right? It's another thing if there are real dangers involved here, and I live with other people, and what I do affects other people. How I wear a mask when I'm at school and social distance and all of this stuff, right? It affects other people, and I should be afraid in part just because I love them, I care for them, I care for all people, hopefully. But also that for myself, there's probably also a level of kind of fear for myself as well that is valid. So what do I do with that? Like valid concerns from a place of love, hopefully. Where do I go with that fear?
Mm-hmm. I often wonder if we're dealing with a situation where, as St. Ignatius would say in the exercises, like, are we seeing the angel of darkness coming disguised as an angel of light?
What do you mean by that? Well,
because it seems like we are kind of what you were saying, like going into public spaces is dangerous. We're all at risk, everywhere we go, not just here or whatever. So the safe thing is just to not do anything,
right? To
hide away.
Yeah.
To turn inwards and to only be individual and, only worry about me. Mm-hmm. And by doing that, then I'm helping everybody else.
Right.
Right. It's kind of this false humility there.
Right.
Like I've been given permission to be selfish in that sense, that that I worry about myself. And I don't know that that's the gospel message.
Right. Yeah. So I think
to be overly individualistic.
Yeah. So I think there's another distinction here, right? Of like, if I'm staying away from other people because I love them, right? Then that's an actual like very generous act on my part. And if I'm choosing to isolate or to quarantine or whatever else because I really love these people around me. But if I find that I really I'm walking down a hallway, right, and I have an opportunity to look other people in the eye and to greet them and to ask them how they're doing, maybe even to stop and like talk to them for a moment. But because I'm wrapped up in my own little world and wrapped up in my own fear and my own concern and anxiety, and not for any good reason, but just because I'm kind of dominated by fear, I fail to kind of greet them. I think there's a level of like, maybe understandable, but like personal failure on some level in that action. And that, there is an invitation, I think, to come out of myself and to greet them and to try to have like conversations and engagement with people, even if with a mask and that there's a barrier there, to kind of go beyond what is typically expected of me, because there are all these barriers to communion, to communication. That means I have to do all the more, and that all the more is demanded of me.
Yeah. I wonder if there's a deeper trick of the evil spirit going on here. Like, I think we naturally kind of fall into these kind of two ways of looking at something. And this is especially the case. Like, you're either totally all in, never going out, wearing a mask with gloves and, the whole thing, totally safe, or you're like a COVID denier or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like it's 0 or 100. There's no in between, where it's like, how do we start developing these relationships that have been seriously lacking over the past many months safely? Like, is that possible?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think so. But I'm going to be holding back, and you're going to be holding back because we're still so afraid, I think.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's, on some level, there's just reality, right? We can just look and see that this is a very dangerous virus. The people, even if they're not, even if it doesn't cause death, like it still is a very dangerous virus. Even for young people, it can be very dangerous, right? I mean, there's some level of just like facts. Masks are immensely helpful, and that's just a fact, right? So there's a level of just like facts, I think, about it. But on another level, it's a question of like, well, what is prudent, right? And do I need to take this risk in order for a good reason or not? And how do I make that judgment? And people might make different judgments about what risks are acceptable or not, right? And so, I mean, I think that's a very maybe a very difficult thing to say anything with great conviction and clarity on.
Yeah.
but there's definitely like a challenge I think that each of us have to take of like, well, there is now, for better or worse, right? There is a sense of opening. There is a sense of kind of coming back, and like, what is my part in that? How can I kind of make some effort to be part of this in a way, and to show love, and to kind of grow, and to ask for help? I think in particular can be a way that I'm doing my part, is if I'm not just relying on myself to get through this, but I'm actually inviting someone else into like my story, what I'm feeling, because like I think isolation, right, is a good thing. And if I'm in quarantine, it can be a good thing. But isolation is a terrible thing for human relationships in general, right? And so, like, if I have a temptation to isolate, like emotionally or spiritually, that is not a good thing. And so I think that's kind of maybe the tension, is that we have a physical level of isolation that is good, maybe necessary, and we have a spiritual or social level of isolation that is really not. And like, how do I adjudicate between those two things?
Yeah, well, I'm really struck by what you just said. You have to ask yourself, what's my role to play? What's my part to play is what you said. Mm-hmm. What's my part to play in this? Which is inherently communal, because you're not doing the whole thing. You've got a part
right.
to play in this, whatever it is. You've got a part to play in the hybrid model here at Strake Jesuit. You've got a part to play in our community. Everybody has a part to play in something. And I think one of the traps, one of the dangers is getting to the point where I don't think of myself as just being a part of something. Like, I have to be separate from. Like, my part to play right now may be to isolate. Mm-hmm. My part to play right now may be to go outside of my comfort zone a little bit and go to a hybrid class. I have to think about that some more. I like that idea.
Right. And that, I mean, I loved how you say, like, I only have a part, right? And that we are a community, and a community has, many different roles within it. And so someone who's remote learning or remote teaching right now has a very important part to play in this whole vision. But it's going to be very different from the part that, the janitorial staff will play, right? Where they're on campus every day cleaning for us, right? So, like, that's going to be a very different part, but they're both essential to the work and to the community. So I think that'll just kind of be manifest to us, right? Of what part I have. That things are going to be demanded of me. I have to turn this assignment in for this particular class at this particular time, right? Or I have to, drive my son or daughter to school at this particular time, right? So it's just these roles and parts are kind of obvious, but the devotion or the spirit that I bring to them, that's something that I think is really open to us to kind of decide, and I can choose to. Turn in that assignment kind of with kind of a dour face and unhappily without any generosity. And if I've done that, then I've sort of already suffered the punishment of my lack of generosity, right? I've already experienced sort of separation and anxiety and a lack of joy, right? And so that's the amazing thing about this, is that it's very immediate, I think, of when I go out of my comfort zone and I try to do something generously and with kindness, right? I'm immediately going to experience that as like openness and growth and maybe even joy. And if I choose to kind of isolate spiritually and sort of just bitterly kind of count all the things that are being taken from me, I'm going to experience that as like sadness or sorrow. And life is going to be more difficult for me in the moment. So I think there's like the immediacy of it can sometimes be helpful for us to recognize, like, this is a good thing for me to do because I really immediately recognize that it's generous and helpful. And that's what I want. I want to be generous and helpful, right? And I think all of us do.
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed with myself, doing a lot through prayer and I did my retreat recently. I think I've been mourning. I've been in mourning recently, because this whole year, since whatever it was, February, like in my first year as a priest, I don't get to celebrate the Easter Vigil.
Right.
I don't get to do the Sacred Triduum. I don't get to do, so many different things that you expect to be able to do, like coming back to teach. I taught 3 years in Dallas, but now my first year back is mostly on Zoom. Like, that's not what I wanted.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I can get that. Right. And so I think that there's an interesting, and like I said, this is something that I've been praying with a lot recently, like so my mom passed away, 5 or so years ago now. And this isn't the same level by any means. But I'm noticing some of the similar tendencies, and a lot of what you just said, like there's a tendency to pull back. There's a tendency to be a little bit gun shy when, when I was a regent, like, yeah, we got school, I got to be there. So let's go, let's do it. Let's be as present as we can. And now it's like, well, I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, first of all, I think using that term mourning, I think that shows a lot of courage. And I think that's exactly right. I think a lot of us, maybe all of us are kind of mourning on different levels, right? And maybe mourning is kind of too strong in some cases, but I think it's just true.
Or
right?
just grief. There's a lot of grief going on.
I think a lot of us are grieving, right? I think of the senior class and
or the freshman class.
The freshman class, right? Like all of us are grieving in different ways of things that we expected, that we looked forward to, that now just they're not quite there, right? And people are doing everything they can. I think like the generosity has been exceptional, and
absolutely,
I think things are so much better than if we just hadn't done anything, right? I think people are doing as much as they can,
and that's a testament to our community.
And it really is. So it's awesome, but there's still a level of like, well, this isn't right. We don't have our entire student body on campus, right? And there's just a loss there, right? That's just objectively a loss. And so like, what is that? Yeah. How do I carry grief? And I think we've already talked about it a little bit of like, well, the options are bitterness, right? I can carry it with bitterness and sort of resenting the fact that this is my lot and that I didn't want this, I didn't choose it, it was chosen for me, and therefore I resent that this choice has been made for me or that this has happened to me. Another option, like we mentioned, was generosity. In the face of things being taken from me, I give more. It's like, all right, so blessed are the cheerful givers. So much has been taken from me. Lord, I give you even more because maybe you're teaching me how to give by taking away things that I don't want to give. You're showing me that choosing to give them anyway is a mark of blessing, right? And that's kind of what I mean with religious life. This is the vows, right?
Yeah.
I choose to give away, my wealth. I choose to give away my own will. I choose to give away romantic relationships. Because I know that all of these things are for my good, but will eventually go away. Yeah. So now I choose to give them away early, so that I can enjoy the blessing that comes from eventually having them taken from me. Right?
No, that's beautiful. And one of the things that I love about, I love a lot of things about Jesus, God. Okay, pretty dope.
Good.
But one of the things that I love, especially when you start to compare different gospel accounts, like the different synoptics. And this is one of the reasons why I love Luke so much, the Gospel of Luke, is because we see a Jesus who, he's not the perfect God-man of John, right? This kind of deity here on earth, walking and knowing everything. In Luke, he's kind of like this middle of the road kind of guy. Like, it's clear he knows, the Transfiguration, all these wonderful stories are there. But it's not like Mark, where it's like boom, boom, boom.
Right.
But anyway, one of the things that I love about Luke is that he shows how possible it is to be who we were made to be. Like, Jesus in Luke doesn't, like okay, what am I trying to say? Okay, the temptations in the desert, I love, because it shows that it's reminding us of Genesis, first of all, which I also love, in the garden, that the devil comes and tempts us with things that we already have. Okay, but Jesus shows us that in his humanity, it is possible to succeed where Adam and Eve failed, to say no, or to say yes, to open up to God, to say yes to God. And I love that idea that Jesus isn't showing us how to be perfect. Well, he is. I think deeper than that, and hopefully this isn't heresy to say, but he's showing us simply that it's possible. and that our job is to recognize that it's possible to live this life of holiness and to want it, to seek it, to try to live it. And knowing that we're not going to do it perfectly. We can't. We're not God.
Right.
But that it's possible. Like I find so much comfort in that.
Yeah. And that it doesn't destroy us, right? I think that maybe that's the key thing is that sometimes I think we have this opposition between what I can do and what God is asking of me. And it seems as though what I know I can do from my own experience, right, might be very limited because I might not have had a lot of success in combating this particular sin or vice or that I might have failed a lot. And that shows me that what I can do based on my own experience might seem like very little. And what God is calling me to might be great. Mm-hmm. It is great, right? He's calling me to perfection, to be perfect. But like, how do I bridge that gap? And like, how is that gap overcome, right? And I think Jesus shows us that it's through renunciation. It's through renouncing these temptations to, rely on myself, to rely on worldly goods, to rely on the help of a spirit that is opposed to God. That ultimately. Union with Jesus Christ, who accepted suffering and who renounced himself for the good of others, right? That is the path to overcoming this gap between what I can do and what I've experienced so far in my life, which might have been a lot of disappointment, and this life of glory that lies ahead of me, right? I think that's maybe the message of, as far as I understand what you were saying about the temptation.
Yeah, I mean, but this. From what you're saying, like, again, we're going back to the cross, and the beauty of the cross is that it doesn't end there. And so there's this hope that we're looking for, that we've been given. Okay, we've been given this hope,
right?
Because of Jesus.
Right.
So how do you find it? Like, well, let me even take it even a further step back. Like, okay, we've been talking about some really heavy stuff. Like, where do we see the hope in all of that?
Yeah. I see hope just in the fact that people are showing up, right? And that people are trying, right? And that takes a special person just to recognize this is required of me today, and I'm not going to give up, right? Like that's actually a gift. That's a sign of hope. And whether you recognize it or not, right? And I think a lot of us might struggle to recognize it. I think I struggle to recognize that I have hope, but I'm acting out of hope of like I'm continuing to do what is asked of me. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing it because I recognize that this is not ultimately all that there is, right? That there's a time where COVID isn't, taking the things I love from me, right? There's a time conceivably in the future that will be better, probably, hopefully, in 6 months or whatever, however long it is, right? But there's a time that I'm hoping for when things will be better. And so I recognize that this limitation, this feeling that I have right now doesn't define me or my hope. And so I can keep going. Yeah. And I think that's just keep going, keep trying, right? That if the emotions aren't there, that doesn't determine how I act, but that I am sort of renouncing my attachment to good emotions or desirable emotions and instead simply accept emotions as they come and act according to what I know, which is that this will not last forever. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I like that. But that also, like, I struggle with that sometimes because it's like, okay, well, I need to just grit my teeth and bear through when times are tough.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that just showing up or just going through the motions, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. Maybe that's a controversial statement to make. I think, like, just showing up, like, that's, like, sometimes that's what's most necessary. And that fidelity to just showing up, right? Just being present, that there's a grace of like sharing my presence with another person, that I'm at least giving God the possibility of working in that. Whereas if I choose to just isolate and be myself emotionally or spiritually, and don't engage and don't show up, then there's really very little that God can work with to make something happen. Mm-hmm. But if I just show up, if I just go through the motions, I'm giving some material that God, the Holy Spirit, can work with to bring something new, to give hope, to encourage other people. Look, like Father Wegenka, he's a mess, but like he showed up today.
He's here,
So maybe there's something there. Maybe I should show up today as well, right? I think that's maybe the.
Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned it on one of our previous episodes, and I think I have mentioned this to you when I have gone on the record as saying, I think Star Wars has done some serious damage to our understanding of life and of the world.
Okay. Why is that?
Do you remember this?
I don't know.
Yoda, when he says, do or do not.
There is no try.
Yeah, there is no try.
Yeah, why is that wrong?
Well, precisely for what you just said, like sometimes trying is the best we got.
Sure.
I think do or do not, like it just, again, goes back to what I was saying earlier about, is it 0 or 100? There's no in between.
Right.
It's like, I'm rarely at 100.
Yeah. And that's God's reality, right? Is every thought that God thinks is immediately an action, and it immediately comes about that God thinks, and it is. And there's no separation between the thought and the action. Whereas for us, like, we deliberate, right? And that's like the glory of humanity, is we deliberate and come to a decision, and that decision can be better than what we thought it could be, basically, right? That over the course of time, our decisions and our choices can be made better.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
exactly.
the drama of human
Boom.
life, and it can be made worse, but it can be made better. And that's like the hope, is that the deliberation, the growth, the change over time, and change is obviously going to involve suffering. But over time, we'll hopefully arrive at more of what the action that God, in that first instant, in that, if you can speak of it as a first instant, in that moment when God thinks and it comes into being, hopefully our deliberation can come to about to have the similar sort of action as what God wills forever, eternally. Right?
Yeah, no, I like that. What do you mean, though, when you said change involves suffering?
Yeah, so I mean,
you just kind of glossed over that bomb you dropped.
Yeah, the suffering bomb. Yeah, I don't want to get into the problem of evil and suffering and all of that. But I mean, it is a problem, right?
Absolutely.
That change is necessarily going to mean that something that I was is no longer what it had been. And so I change. The people around me change. My circumstances change. And if I have any attachment to anything within me, about myself, about the world around me, about the people around me, right? That's going to change, right? And that's good, because if it's terrible, well, it's going to change. But if it's great, it's going to change. And even if it's just okay, it might not always be as good as it is now. And I think that's the experience of suffering.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that's going back to this question of mourning, of grieving. Like, are we recognizing that things have changed?
Yeah. Yeah, that things have changed, and that it's okay for things to change. It's okay for senior year to not be like every senior year, or like maybe what I imagine every senior year has been before. Right? I've maybe never been a senior before. I have, but our seniors have never been seniors before. But they've heard about it. They've seen it. They have expectations based on real experiences of other people. And now it's not quite what they expected. It's not real, maybe anywhere what they expected.
It's on a different planet.
It's a different planet, right? But
maybe Venus. There's life there now. Did you hear that?
There is. Yeah, there's life on Venus, apparently. Maybe. But hey, there's something new here, right? There's something new in this circumstance. And we might not say it's better.
Yeah.
But it's definitely new.
I think that's a good way to look at it too.
And I can look back to what I wanted, what I had. And there's a role in that, right, of recognizing, well, what did I love about this thing that is now no longer present to me, right? There's a grace in looking back and recognizing and grieving and holding on to the good that I once had, and hope that it will return or be given back to me more fully in the future, in eternity, even in time to come. But also to recognize, like, there's a gift now of, like, hybrid learning. Who would have ever thought that hybrid instruction is a gift, right? But it's new. And there's something there that I can, in the course of my day, choose to make hybrid learning the very best hybrid learning that anyone has ever thought of, or ever imagined, or even better, right? That this is new, and therefore I'm free to choose to make it better. And I think that's a huge gift that I'm not in touch with, but that I think if I have hope and if I recognize all of that we're talking about, I think it's true. Yeah,
this is not entirely on topic, but I often wonder what kind of innovations in technology this is going to force, because we've kind of been in like this technological comfort zone. Like, things haven't really changed. Like, there have been a lot of changes in technology throughout the recent years, but like the way that we use them hasn't really changed all that much.
Right.
And now we're in this really different type of a setting. And I wonder if our old ways of doing things are going to continue to work, even when, there's a vaccine or whatever, and we're allowed to come back.
Right.
I think
things have changed. Like I used to teach
that's
with
an
paper,
exciting
tons of paper.
Oh,
and I
yeah.
graded stacks of papers printed out.
I hate paper.
And right. And I graded on paper all the time. Now I haven't done paper
Exactly.
at all, and I'm actually kind of maybe better for it because well, think of all the trees, but also like that's a lot to carry around.
Yeah.
It's a lot to get disorganized. It's a lot to just feel the weight of the paper of like, well,
Yeah.
this is my grading. Whereas now quizzes grade themselves. It's like, hey, this is probably a better thing.
Yeah.
That was forced upon me. I didn't choose it. I still like paper in some ways, but you know what?
Gross.
Maybe this is growth that is required of me that is ultimately going to be better.
And there's an excitement there, I think. That we can see, okay, well, we're seeing new possibilities, instead of just holding on to what was and what should have been, we look ahead to see what can be, who we can become.
Right. And I think just imagine if, if I can survive COVID, great. I mean, that's really important. God, that's a blessing. But if I can thrive in COVID, like what great glory I give to God if I thrive in the midst of affliction.
That's right.
And that I don't need the perfect setup. I don't need everything to be going my way in order to thrive, right? That I am so grateful to God and so much in touch with the things that are most important that I can even find a way to invite God to help me to thrive, to give me the grace to thrive in the midst of, all of the things going on around me.
Yeah.
Like what great glory we could give to God if we can really live that out,
Yeah, I love that. And in fact, that's St. Paul says that in Romans 12:12. I put this on my ordination card.
Oh, wow.
Rejoice in hope. Endure. I got that wrong already.
That's okay.
Endure in affliction, persevere in prayer, and rejoice in hope.
Right. Rejoice,
Rejoice in hope. Having said, gone through all of what we've gone through, after we've literally endured this affliction,
yes.
What are we called to do? Rejoice in hope.
Right.
Boom.
Rejoice. I rejoice. Just to be able to recognize that it's possible. That it's something that Paul recognized is possible. It's something that this grace is eternal. It comes to us even here and now in this predicament. That we can have hope, and we can rejoice.
You got to flower where you're planted.
That's right, exactly. I'm going to flower as best I can. That's the hope. So,
very cool.
Awesome.
All right, we done?
I think so.
Amen. Okay. Amen.